Well, welcome to this bonus segment here on Security Weekly. I am your host, Paul Asadoorian, and today we're going to be talking about working from home. Many of us have worked from home for quite some time and would like to share our advice, tips, and tricks. Many of those social, many of those habits that you should or should not have, and some technology, but not so much security, technology of how you do video conferencing and the like. Joining me today is Mr. Larry Pesce. Larry, welcome.
Thank you. And yes, absolutely. We're practicing our social distancing. And
yes, we are.
This was kind of a last minute decision thing. So here I am from remote well, perfect for the show, right?
That's right. From home. Mr. Lee Neely is here with us. Lee, welcome.
Yeah, very much social distancing, but enjoying the opportunity to be here.
Mr. Tyler Robinson.
Buenos dias. Enjoying our new isolation in effect as of today.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Scott Lyons is here with us. Scott, welcome.
What's going on there, fam? How's everything going on?
Hey, we're getting by. Can't complain, really, to be honest with you. There's people in much worse shape than we are, certainly. So hopefully our advice today can help some folks be a little more productive working from home. Larry, you did the prep for this one. I'm just here to talk smack.
Face.
Yeah.
So no, I think we wanted to cover some stuff. You're just working from home. A bunch of us have been doing this for a number of years, and we've tried a bunch of things. We've had a bunch of things that work. One from the environment and just all of the things that we found about isolation and not being in an office and break time and food and all of those types of things. And then into the second half about some of the technology that we found that works, and not about securing your home network for work from home, because Joff just did a great webcast on that with Black Hills, and a bunch of other folks have done it. But I think for our community, that many of us haven't worked from home or worked from home for long periods of time and are missing much of the other aspect. So what I think I want to start with was to talk about some of the things that we found working from home from an environment perspective. And I think for me, one of the big ones when I went to work from home, and this may be tough given that all of a sudden many of us have just been pushed to work from home. But when I started more than 10 years ago, it was very much a conscious decision that I would have a place where I could go with a door that closed, and that was the office. And we very much got our kids trained as they grew up as if Daddy's in his office, you need to make sure he's not on the phone or he doesn't have his headset on, or knock gently on the door before you interrupt, as opposed to just running in and barging in. So I think one of the ones is if you can find a spot to go work with a door that can close is great. But
Larry,
I
forgot.
Having a specific area to go work is huge.
I forgot about the basics because I worked from home up until 2015 when we got the studio, and I set up my office here, obviously. So now when I'm back working from home more often now, I mean, I'd come into the studio just really to do shows. I don't come in on my non-show days. And Johnny and I practice very much social distancing here at the office, so much so we use different coffee machines, different bathrooms. We don't touch each other's food or drink or anything like that. So, but in the at home, I forgot how important it was to have an office, right? And I kind of took that for granted that I have an office at home. I go in, I close the door, like Dad's at work, right? And when you first start working from home, you might not have that, right? Larry and I both worked, and many of us, right, in offices where you went to the office every day outside of your home, and experimented with different, like maybe I can work from the living room today or the kitchen. That it doesn't work. We've tried it. Yeah. We've all tried it, right? My brother-in-law works from his dining room table. I'm like, I don't know how you do that.
So I've got this cute little redhead that's about to be 5, right? And I've got a door that locks, right? She can't get into it. And it seems that whenever I'm starting on something really big where I need a lot of concentration, along comes the redhead and
Yep.
Daddy, and you're like, oh, I just started this process. Why? Yes, dear. Right. Mommy wants you to know that we're going out. Okay, no problem, right? And it's like, oh, you're killing me over here. If there was only a red light I could put above the door and say, if this thing's spinning, well, you know what to do.
Scott, you bring up a very good point, and something that I also kind of lost sight of not working from home as much up until recently is the importance of what Gene Kim called flow, right? And I think that's a really, really excellent point, is that when you go into an office, right, most people working in office in corporate America today understand flow and understand the headphone rule. If you have your headphones on, you don't bug someone, right, kind of thing, and know that if people are working, they're working, and I'll catch them when they're in the cafeteria. When you go home, your family may not understand some of those kind of unspoken rules or the concept of flow. And so when you start working from home, you have to have that conversation with your family. That's the most important conversation you can have with the aspect of working from home, is the cost of interruption, right? And then I'm not being a jerk. Right. It's just you have to explain to them the cost of interruption. And now that we haven't done it for a while, when I worked from home, we lost sight of that, and I was working on a project that required a lot of concentration. I put on Twitter, we made a huge migration of our wiki to a new platform, and that was required a lot of concentration. And when you're interrupted, that stuff doesn't get done, and that's probably one of the most important things I think working from home.
Yeah, that's all about setting those expectations.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Oh, sorry. That's all about setting those expectations and having those open conversations with your children and letting them know, like, hey, this is work, and being very frank with them so that they understand why you have to work, and they're not dumb, like really figuring that out. But the counter side to that, though, is having that work-life balance, making sure that when you're done working and you do set some times or some flexible hours in which you do your work, that you also stop working. When you're at home, you have to have that kind of clear distinction. That's why a separate space is important. So when you come out, your kids don't see you on a computer or on your phone, and they don't know if you're working or not. They don't know if they can approach you, if you're off bounds or inbounds. Like having those availability and those clear lines and boundaries for the kids makes it good for them, so that they feel like they have an open door to you still.
Yep.
For those who don't work from home, right? For those who don't work from home, it's all about getting into the routine, right? When you get up, you brush your teeth, hopefully, do the 3 military S's. Hopefully you can go Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about, right? Get in your car, drive to the office, do your work, get in your car, drive home, have dinner, right? In the office, you have you sit down for a good part of the morning, make sure that your hair is not on fire, answer any emails that you may have, get up, go to the coffee maker, go back, sit at your desk, get up, go talk to people. Really what it is working from home is a readjustment in the routine, right? And it's a very difficult readjustment for a lot of people, right? They're used to this way of, like I was saying, get up, go to work, go home, dinner, sleep, get up, go to work, right? If you can establish your routine, right, and then voice that routine with everybody else, it'll make your life 10 times easier. Am I wrong?
No, I agree, Scott. I think you have to also define with your family work times and non-work times, right? And your work time is probably not going to be 9 to 5 when you work from home. In fact, that's one of the great benefits of working from home, is your work time doesn't have to be 9 to 5. So very frank with the family. I'm like, look, I'm going to work probably till, maybe around 3 today, or maybe I'm going to take this morning as an example. I didn't work from home, right? But I said in the morning, I'm going to stick around. I'm going to help all the kids with their homework, because we're essentially homeschooling our children right now, as are most people in the U.S., right? And so I stuck around, helped with homework this morning, and we knew that that was non-work time for Dad, right? And then Dad was going to actually go to the office, and frankly, whether that's here or at home, that's when Dad's going to work. And maybe I'm off work a little early. We're going to go for a walk, and then I'm like, after everyone goes to bed, 9, 10 o'clock, I'm going back to work for a couple of hours, right? After everyone's asleep. And you just have to establish, like Scott said, that new routine, and that may change daily, weekly.
Yep, and Paul, I think this is one of the things that we're going to find with sort of the quote, the new normal, as everybody's saying about, that many employers are going to find that the work from home and the work remote is actually a tenable option. I think folks are going to find that a more flex work schedule is also going to work out for folks too. Like, similar types of thing, Paul. My morning this morning was, Orion, our little one. Her schoolwork, her schoolroom is right there. Like, so she comes in and we get her started in the morning, and I'll do some things that don't require long tasks, like some emails and a few little things here and there.
Great point, Larry.
Go back and forth to help her, and then like this afternoon. I cut out of work at 2:30. We went for a hike. We were gone about 90 minutes. I came back. I did some work. I'll do some work later tonight.
Yep.
And flex hours are hugely important to that.
But
and,
Larry, you hit on
but
something.
not abusing flex hours. Is
Yeah,
also important.
exactly. But you hit on something I think is really important, is that your work schedule is going to fluctuate and the environment based on the type of work that you're doing, right?
Yes.
If you've got a day, like some of my days, if they're filled with meetings, I'm going to be answering email in between, doing smaller tasks, I can be interrupted, right? But when I'm pushing out an entire new Docker deployment into production, that's not a time where I can be easily interrupted. So the family also needs to know there's going to be some days, maybe some weeks where, you know what, this isn't like a heavy project week. This is meeting here. I got email, update documentation. I can do the type of work that I can be interrupted. But when I'm writing code, doing a pen test, working on Docker deployments, those types of things, maybe even writing a lengthy document like a pen test report or something, that's when I need the time, like a block of time where I can't be interrupted. So that's important.
Yep, and thinking about
finding
that
those
for me.
times.
Oh, sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, man. Go ahead. So I was going to say, finding those times in which you realize that you are in that flow state, or you have more productivity that may be kind of outside the classical hours, really understanding and getting used to what works for you for certain tasks. If you're answering emails or doing particular mundane tasks, maybe that's a 5 a.m. till 8 a.m. and then you're not cutting into helping with the homework. Or if you're more productive at night, having that flexibility, but really understanding where your times personally start to match up. There's meetings and stuff you have to make during the day, but that flexibility also leads to productivity if you can kind of figure out for yourself what works and when the most productive time or hours are.
Yeah, see, 5 to 8 for me is that's coding time, right?
Yes.
That's prime coding time for me. But it might be different for other people.
I think I can hear Lee in there.
So I was going to say is the having a known schedule is important, not just for you, but for the folks you work with, and with the folks that are now all of a sudden working from home and teams are not in the office. I know not everybody worked from home. Having a communication vessel, a Slack channel, a Manamorse channel, something where you can say, hey, when you're in and when you're out, because everybody's used to just being able to walk down the hall and grab you. Huge awareness as you figure out the new normal and you're trying to find out who's around. Big help.
One of the most overlooked rules, right? When you're working from home and you've got a new routine, you need to take care of yourself, right? Personal hygiene. As a DEF CON attendee, we call it the 3-2-1 rule, right? 3 hours of sleep, 2 square meals a day, and at least 1 shower. Please use soap with what's going on out there, right? So that might be some sage advice for trying to take care of yourself.
Yep, and those things all have some variations too, and you're working from home, so maybe 7, 8, 10 hours of sleep might be okay, and maybe a shower every other day. But for me, some of that routine is I get up every morning and I get dressed. Now, maybe on a Friday after a podcast, after a late night, maybe that getting dressed is still some pajamas for until 10 o'clock. But at some point in the day, I will get dressed. I will become human. I'll put on pants that require a belt and those types of things. So getting dressed, and it's not like I'm putting on a suit, but I'm dressed. The other one that I find too about taking care of yourself is how many of us work in an office, and many times the meals are whatever's around the corner at the little delicatessen and those types of things. I find that I can eat better because I can shop for myself and because the refrigerator is right there. And these are also some things that might be difficult in the current state of affairs. But to that, and that getting up and taking care of yourself and taking a break, in many cases, what I will do is that I know I'm going to have a healthy for me or a good or a decent lunch. That break around 10:30 when I might get up to get a second cup of coffee is preparing some of the things that I might want for lunch. Like if I'm going to have ramen, I need to chop some vegetables, and maybe I need to whisk some eggs or something of the like. I can
Really?
get that prepared at my 10:30 break and then take that to lunchtime.
I just add hot water to the ramen cup, but.
But see, now I can eat better because I can have better for me ramen with real vegetables.
But Larry, you said something that was interesting, and I've been trying to find a way to describe when I did work from home, when I worked for Tenable for about 8 years, right? I would almost have a game, like how long can I wear the same pajama pants? Like, is it 3 days before it gets so gross like I have to change them, right? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like if you're happy and you're in your pajamas, same pajamas for a couple days, that's cool. But what I found is that when I did that, you get like a little kind of depressed, right? I mean, not like super depressed, but like you kind of don't feel good about yourself as much when you're like, wow, I've been in the same clothes for like 3 days. It's kind of a downer, right? And I think getting up every day, showering and putting clothes on, like Larry said, pants with a belt, I mean, maybe even a button-down shirt, get dressed up and go to work. It's cool, right?
Paul,
I think it helps your mood.
If you can smell yourself and you know you've washed your upper lip that morning, it might be time to change your pants.
Yeah. Sometimes admittedly that happens.
You got to get into a work frame of mind.
Yeah, I like to dress how you're gonna feel, right? You always want to show up. If you don't show up and dress how you want to get paid, or you don't show up and want to feel professional, like if you need that boost and you need to feel that professional aspect or that kind of impact, then you really need to do that in a manner that works for you. But getting dressed for me is, I'm going to throw on a button down. I'm going to throw on some slacks and a nice pair of shoes, even if I am going to sit in front of the computer all day, because hey, that's what makes me feel good and makes me feel professional.
Hey, I sometimes I feel great. I put on a new tracksuit and I'm good, right? And I'm comfortable.
It's a dragon onesie, Paul. It's not a tracksuit.
Yeah. I have been known to wear the onesies at home too when I work. It's
wow.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
I find I've got to dress more than that
when we wear
like
onesies, and customers who are just meeting us are like, "What are you wearing?" Right? Especially, in going to conferences, there are a lot of us that like to play, right? Different characters. Like, there's one guy that I know that likes to dress up like Deadpool, and dead serious. You'll see people that have never met him talking to him, and then he'll go and change clothes, come back, and they don't know who he is.
Yep.
Costume day in the home office.
Yeah. So one of the, of course, now I was going to say something I can't remember what it was. One of the other ones that is definitely some things to think about. Is the social interaction. Working from home. If you live alone and now you're spending all day and all night in the same area, and you don't get to interact with anybody. Sometimes a phone call just isn't enough. And we've been seeing lots of people that are doing like Zoom meetings and like that type of stuff. And honestly, I find that is really helpful to have that type of interaction, even with folks outside of your family. Like for me, Paul, one of the highlights of my week is coming to the studio on Thursday, because I get to see other humans that aren't my family. And given the current circumstances, seeing other humans isn't necessarily an option, but seeing someone other face to face via video is
almost.
It's almost. And if at all possible, like if I've got to meet with somebody at work, instead of just doing voice, we'll do like a quick Google Meet with one or two people. And in fact, every afternoon we have a standing 1 p.m. for 2 hours, 3 p.m. Eastern meeting where we do Google Meet with video, if it's appropriate for you to do video, and we sit there and work on camera, even if we're not talking to each other. We're in the presence of other people.
Yeah. That's really cool. Larry, I want to go back to the food thing for a moment too.
Yeah.
Because I think that could go either way, right? You could develop really bad habits or really good habits. What I find when I was working from home, I tend to drink more water at home. I don't know what it is. It's not like we don't have water here, but like at home I may have some fresh lemons and limes, and I fill up a really big glass and I drink a lot more water. I don't do that in the office. It's coffee. So like you gotta sometimes tune your habits. The eating thing too, you can be raiding the fridge all the time and eating really bad, right? Or Larry, you sound like you're turning that around. You eat healthier at home.
I try. It doesn't always work.
No, I agree.
Yesterday I had potato sticks for lunch, because next thing I knew it was 3:00 and I'm like, oh, I forgot lunch. So
is that fries? Potato sticks? Is that considered fries? Is that what potato sticks
Were they
are?
from Idaho?
Pretty much. Yeah, yeah. No, like potato sticks they're like those deep fried crunchy ones that come in that sealed can from French's.
Damn,
So,
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude,
keeping
I could
keeping
totally
snacks
see you
around
doing
people.
haggis for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay.
You know, you're not far. You're not far.
So the other
You know,
the other
get
thing
some,
while we're talking
get some
about
free
eating
range
is
chack and
getting the
fillet
hell
some free
away
range
from the
eggs.
computer when you're eating. Don't eat at your
Yes.
keyboard.
That's a good point. Yeah, and have lunch dates too. When I worked from home, we would go to lunch. Larry and I would go to lunch. Go get sushi.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same thing with my wife. We'll try at least once a week when the kids are at school and when we can go out and have a lunch date. Sometimes that means go sit at the darn kitchen table with the kids now.
Now
and all have lunch together.
Yeah, now that's not.
You know,
so much
you
an
bring
option,
up a really good point in that even though you're working from home and you're still trying to be as productive as you were in the office, right? Having some personal time always does everybody good. You know, like take 10 minutes during lunch, noon to 1, 11 to noon, whenever you take lunch, right? And go sit in a dark room and just decompress for a second, right? You know, because this is a new process. Am I wrong in thinking that, guys?
No. I think exercise is important too. You know, getting on the treadmill at home. You know, there's tons of exercise. I see people exercising all the time. I feel like people are exercising more now that they're home than not, and then all the gyms are closed, right? Kind of concerns me about what's going to happen to the gyms when all this blows over, right? Because everyone's doing all the remote we did yoga. I was teaching the kids Tai Chi, like, the whole thing, because we're all in the house together. I'm like, well, we have to exercise. I think it's a really good habit to develop when you work from home.
Same thing. The kids did. Orion, our little one, it was gym day today, and they had to watch some videos and do some exercise for 5 minutes with the video. And I said, well, you've done karate remote twice this week already. And I know mommy wants to do some yoga. So this was my push to go. I'd subscribe to the Yoga with Adrienne YouTube channel and went out of the TV, fired it up for him. And the two of them did yoga for 40 minutes this morning.
Wow, I didn't know Iron Geek was doing yoga. That's awesome.
Not Adrian.
Oh, different Adrian.
Yeah. One's much better to look at than the other.
I think it would be hilarious if Iron Geek had a yoga channel. If you're listening, Adrian, we want a yoga channel on your YouTube channel.
Yes.
Iron Geek Yoga. Dude, I could totally see
I could totally see it.
See that.
Iron Yoga.
Iron Yoga.
Yep. That's awesome.
Oh my Lord, like that would be utterly hilarious, So
even if you aren't like, oh, go ahead, Scott.
No, what I was going to say was I was going to take this in a different direction, right? If you pay attention to your Facebook groups and your online groups and so on and so forth, you may see those groups throwing up Zoom meetings or Zoom links or Skype meetings or Skype links. If you're feeling like you're missing that human connection, and it's not something that would be prevalent, right? It would be like that itch in the back of your head, like you're not seeing your friends, you're not seeing your coworkers, right? Go join those groups and make new friends. Working from home can be a very isolative experience if you're not careful.
Yeah, and I guess I'm a bad example, maybe Larry too, because at least once a week we would all get together, right, on Thursdays to do the podcast. So like if I ever was like reaching a point, it would be Thursday. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like before we had the studio and I work from home, people would all come over to my house every Thursday, much to my wife's chagrin sometimes, especially when we were drinking more heavily than the last Thursday or whatever, right? But the point is people would come over and we'd have interaction with each other. So it kind of helped that. One thing I wanted to ask you folks that work from home now is, how do you manage the expectations of your significant others or people you live with that are like, oh, you're home now. That means you can do laundry and empty the dishwasher and clean the floor and mow the grass and trim the shrubs and take the trash out, take the trash back in, and all that stuff. How do you manage that? Because I think sometimes the expectations of the people we live with are like, oh, you're home all day. That means you're going to get all this stuff done in the house. I'm like, well, we still have to like work, right?
Yeah. So this is the one thing that I saw someone say that like, oh, all those people that say you work from home and you've been working from home so long, it must be like a vacation. You must not do anything all day. Yeah, no, we
It's
work
like, no, we're
all
in
day.
prison. What's wrong with you?
Right.
No,
They
we're
don't call it
working.
vacation from home. They call it work from home.
From
right?
home.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Paul, for us, because I've been doing it 10 or more years, that when we went into that, it was very much, we had to have that conversation, was that when I was in the office, I was in the office.
Yep.
I could take breaks to take the trash in and out, but that wasn't going to happen every day. And it was, they were going to be catch can, as it were. And it's, if I'm going to take a half an hour to vacuum, it's going to be another half an hour to an hour in the evening that we're not going to spend together as a family.
Right.
Because then it becomes flex time. And if you want me to come have dinner and cook dinner, or come and sit at the table and spend some time with you in the evenings, then that's not going to get done in the evening. Or it's going to wait for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've been home all the last couple weeks, and we've got a whole bunch of house projects. We're putting down laminate hardwood floor in our dining room. And you know what days that got done on? Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
It's not like it got done Monday through Friday, because those are work days.
Yep. It is very much flex time.
You know, we've when I say we, I say Josh and I, my co-owner of Red Lion, right, co-founder. We've been working from home for years at this point, right? Years and years and years and years and years. And we have an understanding with our significant others that if we are at the computer, leave us alone, right? When we're ready to take a break, we take a break. But we've educated them on that process, right? We've sat down, we've had cogent conversation about when not to approach, when we need to get work done, heads down. Me personally, I'll be playing all types of music at extremely loud volume, and my wife knows point blank, don't approach him because he's really effing busy, right?
Yeah.
So this comes to the point of, how do you do that? A lot of these people have not gotten to the point, or they've not had the time. I've been doing this almost 2 decades now, and it takes time and patience and a little bit of grace to kind of educate your significant other that this is kind of how this is going to go. And there's going to be mistakes made, and you really have to kind of have that open line of communication. It really comes down to being very clear with what you need and what you want, and then being very clear about what's working and what's not working. And that all comes down to communication. I know this is hard for a lot of the people in this industry, or those that don't communicate well. But honestly, if you want to do this well and you want to work remote, that means very, very clear expectations are set, very clear communication channels are established. And that means meeting those expectations by following through on your part, the part that you say you're going to do, and how you do it. If you're going to be off at 6, or you're going to help with dinner that night and you're going to make up work later, that means do it.
Relationships,
make sure you're not missing
right.
Relationships
and
fail.
the one piece that you missed in there, if I can add to it, is to make sure that they understand, right? Communication is not just a one-way street. People don't live just in your head. You have to get your thoughts out.
Well, relationships fail largely because of unmet expectations, right? And if you put that out there and both people understand that, right, it helps put everything into perspective about what Tyler and Scott just said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to sign a memorandum of understanding with my wife, and she's going to like it or no. It doesn't work like that. Let's be honest.
There's also a side effect when you're working from home and you're in your office space at home. 8 to 5. That's cool. But then if you go back in your office space, during family time, you went back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a message that you're now leaving the family to go work, which might not be the right choice.
Yes.
Yep.
Usually it is not.
Yep. And sometimes you need to communicate why you're going back into the office to go do that. For example,
you get permission.
Or not necessarily permission. Was, hey, you know that thing that we did today, that hour and a half hike that we took out of the middle of the day? That was some flex time. I got to go make some of that up, because I'm a responsible person. I'm a conscientious adult. I won't necessarily have some of that today, because I've already made that up in advance. Right. So, I had to help Orion with some schoolwork, not huge, but I was in here, a couple hours the other night, and I paid my debt forward as it was. So managing all that communication is good.
I think when you work from home, you have to run this balance of, like, when you talk about work, that it's a productive talk about work, because we don't want to talk about work when it's family time, but also we need to have conversations about work so that both people in a relationship understand enough about each other's jobs that when now it takes years. I think Tyler hinted towards this. It takes time, right? Now my wife and I have an understanding when I tell her I love to help the kids with the homework, but I have a webcast that I haven't done slides for and a show that I haven't prepped for, and they got scheduled back to back, and it's completely my fault. I didn't look ahead enough on my schedule, so I gotta go do that. And she's like, no, I get it, right? She understands. Now, if I had never talked about work before, she wouldn't necessarily understand that, but it runs a slippery slope. You don't want to be always talking about work in your family life as well.
That also means you alluded to something there that's important, and that's being prepared and thinking ahead a little bit so that you don't mess up those times, or you can help with those homeworks. If you can prepare for a little bit of that and you can kind of plan ahead and or take ownership if you failed to plan or you failed to do something, own that, let them know that you're apologizing for it, and here's how you're going to do better next time. That makes a big difference, and that goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't always use that everyone makes mistakes, right? But if you try and look ahead and go, hey, tomorrow I'm really busy and I want to get to work early, so therefore tonight, I'll knock off work a little early, right? If I had done that would have been cool. But everyone makes mistakes, right? Oops, sorry. Don't make a habit of that kind of stuff.